a lot of them will think, well, I had to work really hard to get to that point. So hell no, you're not having the changes. Plus I'm thinking, well, I'm equity now, so I'm not spending that money on you guys because I want to get my cash out.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning Truth, Lies and Workplace Culture podcast, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne. I'm a business psychologist and an award-winning co-host.
My name is Al. I'm a business owner and an award-winning business podcast co-host.
And we are here to help you simplify the science people and create amazing workplace cultures. Happy 2024, everyone. I know we've said that before, but you may have gathered from our last episode, it was recorded ahead of time. So 1, we didn't die in a horrible accident. Great news. 2, Happy New Year again. And 3, we won some awards over the break.
We did. We were driving. We live in Bosnia and Herzegovina near Mostar, as I think we might have said before. So we drove back to the UK with the dog and we went back for Christmas. We were maybe in, I think, Austria. We stopped for a coffee. And then you were like, Al, we won an award.
Yeah, I did. We won the Positive Change Podcast Award categories for Best Psychology Podcast and Best Co-Hosts Family, in brackets. Obviously, Al and I aren't related, but you know what it means.
That would be a twist, wouldn't it? So we're really, really excited about that. And thank you so much for the people who arranged those awards and who gave them to us, which was quite rightly the right choice. So we are back here and we're feeling a little bit more refreshed. As I said, we went to the UK. We were away for, I think we worked it out. We were away for like 17 nights and slept in 14 different beds. It was a bit hectic. Then we came back and we just, from New Year to now, we've just had a quiet week. We feel a lot more invigorated. We feel like we've taken our own advice here a little bit. You know, the whole burnout thing. And we were like, yeah, burnout. We talked about a lot about last year, but I don't know about you, Lee, but I was starting to feel a little bit burnt out towards December when we were struggling to get all these episodes done. And I was just like, oh, this bloody podcast. But back, excited about it. We never really fell out of love with the podcast. I think I just got a bit burnt out, a bit grumpy.
I think that just happens towards the end of the year, doesn't it? And we had a really busy run up to it as well. If you're a regular listener, you'll know that last year was just a bit nuts. But we are really excited. We're very excited about the guests we're bringing you. We're very excited about the content that we're going to be focusing on 2024. It has sparked some new ideas. You might be seeing something slightly new from us over the next few weeks. No spoilers. But yeah, keep an eye out. Might look all a bit different in a few weeks' time.
Maybe. Looking at it differently, I ate all the cheese that the UK had to offer. And so now I'm a little bit concerned that my shirt, I put it on today and I was like, has this shrunk in the wash? No. I've done the opposite of shrinking. So if you are looking at this and worried about how tight this is, not meant to be this tight. Anyway, moving on.
It looks good.
Thank you very much. Luckily, it's just from the boobs upwards for me. You don't want to see my cheese belly. Anyway, so we are back here. So we're back with another founder story, but this one is a little bit different.
Yes. So at the Mad World Summit in October, Al sat down with a pretty extraordinary woman who is revolutionizing the legal industry. She's got 32,000 followers on LinkedIn, 21,000 on Instagram. She's a regular on TV and radio. She has her own YouTube channel. And back in 2018, she quit her job and launched a brand new type of law firm where she obsesses about workplace culture, health, and well-being. Our guest today is the fabulous Jodie Hill from Thrive Law.
Yeah, the interview I did with Jodie was so interesting. And despite her being like a genuine bona fide celebrity, she's really down to earth and just really honest. I mean, she told me she started from very humble beginnings and this is her self-confessed working class family, and then bucked the trend in her family by following the traditional path of law. So she became a barrister, which I think is those people who stand in courtrooms with their fingers behind their waistcoats going, I put it to you, sir. And then a solicitor, which is a bit more the people behind the paperwork and lawsuits and all that kind of thing. And then she ended up working for a sizable company. Sorry for my really weird translations there. I was just thinking for our American listeners, I think they call them slightly different, like attorneys, and there might be a slight difference there. So if you know the actual difference, then drop on LinkedIn and let us know. So at this point, she's working for this great company. She's got everything. You'd think she'd had it all. But here's Jo to explain why that certainly was not the case.
When I became a solicitor, I was probably working for a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and had a mental breakdown. And the workplace that I was in really wasn't as supportive as perhaps one would hope, to put it politely. And also just trying to manage, a mental health condition in a high achieving environment, in perfectionism and all of the traits that lawyers tend to have. I have PTSD, anxiety. I was struggling with insomnia. And, balancing all of that with everything, with all your targets was impossible. So I actually left my job. I had nothing to go to, but I just took the view that the environment wasn't conducive to a recovery for me. And I was in a really, really dark place.
Certainly in the UK, and I think in many other countries around the world as well, the legal industry and profession has a few major problems. I mean, first of all, it is quite archaic. The structure is old-fashioned, and it's often led by white, middle-class, straight, boomer-aged owners. They're usually called partners in a law firm, and they're of the opinion, well, we've always done it this way, so why change now? Secondly, when it comes to high pressure and target driven law work, like litigation, often the culture can have a lot of toxic traits. They're hyper competitive or rather cutthroat. Long working hours are part of the deal. We've all seen Harvey Specter on Suits, not exactly the kind of boss who you'd sit down and ask if you're okay. God damn it, is often the
Just do your job.
Is the phrase that is used most often. Great drinking game, drink responsibly, kids. But TV is exaggerated, right? It's not really like that. Well, according to some research from the Law Society's Junior Lawyers Division, more than 90% of junior lawyers say they feel stressed and under pressure at work, with more than a quarter describing stress levels as severe or extreme. In these hyper-competitive environments, partners or leaders of these law firms will often tolerate what are called toxic superstars like Harvey because they contribute enormous fees to the firm. This means that in many, many cases, creating a workplace culture that supports individual needs and performance and well-being is pretty far down the priority list.
And this is unfortunately very common in the industry. So after Jodie left, she had a problem. If she started a job with another firm, was anything really going to change?
Well, actually, all I knew how to do was be a lawyer. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to be a lawyer somewhere. But I was applying to firms and I was just thinking, this is all a load of shit. Like, I can't work for any of these firms because I'm going to go exactly where I was 6 months ago. So I took the view that, in a moment of madness, that's what you do after you've had a breakdown, set my own law firm up. So I did that, and it was probably about a year after the breakdown, but I did it with the view of I wanted to create a psychologically safe place for me to be, quite selfishly, but also to create something that I suppose would attract clients that would share those values from an employment law perspective. So we're working with people who care about people, and also staff, people that share those values and aren't going to push me to the point of breakdown again. So, you've got that supportive environment and creating that culture. So Thrive was born 5 years ago, and we've got a team of about 20 people across the UK now.
This is the story of almost any founder, I think. Get experience in the industry, notice what could be done differently, and start your own business, your own company with those values in mind. But in Jodie's case, she really did have a lot working against her.
So when I set the firm up, I was 29 and a female with tattoos and from a very working class family. So, nobody in my family's got any connections with law. And there was a lot of kickback, like, oh, she's just on social media and TV all the time. She's not really doing any law. And since then, we've been featured by the Law Society, the SRA, ACAS, literally the highest level for employment law. And I just think that, I suppose at that point, I could have taken too many hits because I just had the breakdown. But I was just like, well, I haven't got anything to lose here. I know what I'm saying makes sense because I've actually been the person who had the breakdown. So I know this makes sense. And I suppose going through that process was like, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I'm going to crack on. I'm going to do me, stay in my lane. And actually, it's just built momentum over the years. So we're still a small company. We've still only got 20 people working for us. But having that level of impact across the UK when it's such a small company is just, that for me is just, I'm really proud of that. I was really lucky that I got a scholarship to go to a boarding school because my family lived abroad and I moved schools 3 times in 3 countries in 1 year. And my parents took the view that that was really disruptive when I was in senior school. So I managed to get a scholarship to go to a boarding school near York. And that just opened my eyes to things that I just didn't know existed. And Yeah, I mean, in fact, nobody even in my school did law. Nobody did. It was just me in my year. And actually going to be a barrister as well. Like, that's what I wanted. That's the most traditional route. I was like, yeah, I'll get them wigs and gowns. That sounds great. But I think, yeah, I mean, obviously I cross-qualified, became a solicitor in the end, but that whole process, I wouldn't have changed any of it because I learned so much on each part of that journey. And I really respect each part of that journey, even though parts of it were really difficult, as in like the breakdown, for example. But if I hadn't had that breakdown, I would never have gone and left a firm and set up on my own. Hell no. But when you've lost everything, you have nothing to lose.
One of the foundations that Jodie insisted on when she started Thrive Law was to do things a little bit differently. But in the UK, law firms are regulated by something called the Law Society. Leanne mentioned it a little earlier. And so there can be strict guidelines that you have to follow. Plus, law is not exactly the most progressive of industries. But Jodie's been campaigning for a better culture in law firms, and it seems to be finally working.
Well, interestingly, the SRA have just published some new principles that basically put wellbeing and anti-discrimination principles within our regulatory requirements. It's actually only just come out. I'm speaking at a conference next week about it. But when I set up, it was very much, I suppose it was a nice to have. It was definitely not the priority in a lot of firms. And to be fair, I don't think it is a priority for a lot of firms still, because you can, in the models that they have, they make more money by making people work more hours because people are paid by the hour. So what I wanted to do was create something that was different in the sense of the way that we charge, the hours that we work, where we work, how we work, what we wear, every single thing. For me, was about showing up as our true self and going, actually, this is who we are and what we want to do and how we want to do it. And just trying new things, integrating tech, looking at different pricing models, telling our staff they can work from different countries, just thinking about how can we be more innovative with the way that we work, and then educating our clients to do the same thing. So kind of passing on that knowledge.
Let's talk about making money for a second. I think some people might think, I say some people, not you, dear listener, because you know us and you know the deal. But I think some people might think that you can't have a great culture and also make money or make bank, as the kids say. Profit and purpose aren't often things that are considered one of the same. Litigators, so the lawyers who we usually see on the TV suing someone or fighting for compensation, can bring in huge amounts of money for law firms. And the worst kept secret in traditional law firms is that they love to bill you for every minute they spend on your case. So this is generally why a lot of junior partners will put up with bullying or harassment, discrimination, toxic cultures, an 80-hour work week, because one day they'll become the partner and they'll be rewarded with a big fat check every year. And the cycle of abuse and trauma continues. So I wanted to know how Jodie was doing things differently, but still managing to create a profitable business.
Ultimately, there are different types of lawyers, and a lot of the ones that really want to win tend to be litigators. So we do litigation, but we do it in a different way. So often what happens is you'll have litigators who are, I absolutely need to win. I'll do anything to win. Whereas, lawyers actually do, yes, of course you want to win for your client, but you do have a duty of care to your client to act in their best interests as well, which might include trying to settle rather than winning. So again, it's that mindset of, taking a step back and doing what the best thing is for the individual. But at Thrive, for us, it's really about attracting people whose values are aligned with ours.
In fact, Jodie's employees don't get bonuses in the usual way.
We have behaviours that are aligned with our values, which the team have all agreed. And we mark each other every month on a 360 review on a scale of 1 to 4. And you cannot get a bonus at Thrive unless you score a 3 or above. And the reason for that is, I don't care if you bill £1 million. If you're not a team player and you don't have all of those values and behaviours at a consistently high level, then I don't want that toxic biller. They can leave. And so for me, there's real power in that from a team perspective, because what we're doing is breeding positive behaviours rather than going, well, you can just be a dick and bill loads of money and you can do what you want, because you get that a lot in the big firms, because they go, oh, well, he can just come in whenever he wants because he brings all the clients in. So for me, that was really important to create that culture. I had to lead by example and actually put those things in place and get the team involved in that and bought into the whole process of, understanding why it's important to have those behaviours and what those behaviours actually are that we agree they are.
So just for a quick second, Leah, Jodie mentioned 360 reviews there, 360 degrees, I'm guessing. Can you give us the 90-second summary of what a 360 review is for anyone who's not heard of this before?
Yes, set the timer, Al.
Okay, right, start.
A 360 review is a type of performance evaluation method or tool. Traditionally, performance reviews, pretty one-dimensional, typically involving rating yourself, how you think you're performing at work, and being rated and reviewed by your direct supervisor or your line manager. The issue with this is that as humans, we can be a bit rubbish at being objective a lot of the time. We have blind spots around our own performance and the performance of others. So traditional performance reviews can be a bit limited and potentially biased. In contrast, 360 performance review will seek feedback from the individual on their performance, and then from their direct supervisor or their line manager, and their own direct reports, and their peers, and their key stakeholders, and their customers. The point is to give a more holistic and balanced view of performance, and gaining insights into how our behaviour is perceived by others can lead to improved self-awareness. If we are aware of our faults, we can effectively develop our own capability and adopt behaviours that positively impact and influence our colleagues. I'll stop the timer.
Bing, that was 91 seconds. Very well done.
God damn it.
Just do your job, Leanne. Do your goddamn job. You did very well there. So all this sounds lovely, but is there a business case? Why did law firms do it the old way anyway? Do clients care how their law firm is run?
I think the old school way of I mean, don't get me wrong, we still have clients who want things on hourly rate, and we've still got that ability, but we don't have the billable hours process of monitoring our staff. So yeah, I think the ability to be able to just contact your lawyer direct on WhatsApp, the ability to, just have a conversation and get to know the people that you're working with is, for me, it's all about making it like a personal service. Like, we are all humans in this. Like, we're not robots. We're not people that you can just shout at. And I've had that in previous firms where I've been asked to, go sack that pregnant woman, go and tell that person who's got a mental health problem, let's get rid of them, because that's the values of that organisation, and that's how they treat their people. Well, we don't have clients who ask us to do that, because they wouldn't ask us, because they know that's not what we stand for. And that's what I really love about I suppose me being this brutal about how these things are important has meant that we do attract people who we want to work with, which is really nice.
Clearly, Jodie is building a firm where culture and wellbeing is a priority. So what can other law firms do to replicate this kind of success?
So I think the easiest one is flexibility around hours and location, because if people are struggling, whether it's mental or physical health, giving anybody flexibility on the days when they're struggling more is obviously going to help them. So, and it's just so easy to do. Like, just trust your staff, trust that they'll get on with their work, and allow that flexibility. So, as I said before, our staff can work from anywhere, but obviously there's an air of communication. Like, we don't just do what we want and don't talk to anybody, but there is that trust. So if we know we're not going to be available, we're logging off early, we let everybody know. And so kind of embedding that into your culture is a really, really helpful way to give adjustments to everybody without it being this formal process of, you have to apply here and you have to see a manager and you have to get a doctor's note. It just allows for everybody to be their best self.
So what Jodie's describing there is the idea of reasonable adjustments. Now, unfortunately, it's become somewhat of a buzzword recently, but actually it's about being just a decent leader and genuinely caring about the well-being of your team. Jodie touched on the idea of working from anywhere there, hybrid or remote. Now, there can't be too many law firms who embrace remote working as much as Jodie does. So I asked her what a remote-first law firm actually looks like.
Well, you probably won't see many people in our office because we work smart. So a lot of people work remotely. We work when and where we want. People work different days, different hours, depending on what they're contracted to. But even if you're contracted 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, you can work whatever hours you want, provided your work gets done. So we have policies around, people can work abroad for a month. And, one of our teams just gone to India for a month to an Indian festival and worked remotely for half of it. And half of it has gone to visit family. So really what the difference you'll notice is very casual. Everyone's really down to earth. It might not be anyone in the office if you turned up. You'd have to book an appointment. And actually, it's just a really relaxed atmosphere. And I think when I've worked in other firms, and I've worked in big and small firms, there's a real tenseness when you go in and everybody's got their head down, and it's like, I don't know, it's almost like because they're on the clock, they don't want to look up. And there isn't that at Thrive, which is really nice.
And as a quick aside, regular listeners will know I'm very bullish on AI. Unsurprisingly, Jodie feels the same.
But what I would really like to see is we are integrating AI into the service delivery, trying to, not necessarily do more work and work more hours. It's more about how can we be more profitable so the team don't have to work as many hours, and how can we make their life easier and also our customers' lives easier in terms of accessing our support. So really looking at how we can integrate tech into the business.
So if you've heard any of the episodes we've done before, you'll know that I am pretty passionate about helping leaders create great places to work. But that does require a change of mindset at the highest of levels, at senior leaders, with business owners, with boards, and that can be hard. I wanted to know what Jodie thought was a reason that more law firms aren't doing this.
So I think part of it is to change culture and to change the processes that these big firms have got in place is going to take forever. And you've also got the fact that there's just me. I'm the only director and shareholder. I can make quick decisions. I make decisions based on what's right for me and my team. So we're agile. We're able to make those decisions. And I'm ADHD, so I'm quite impulsive, so I can do that. Whereas if you've got a partnership model, you've got 100 partners in 100 countries, getting those changes is it's nigh on impossible. Plus, a lot of them will think, well, I had to work really hard to get to that point. So hell no, you're not having the changes. Plus, I'm thinking, well, I'm equity now, so I'm not spending that money on you guys because I want to get my cash out. So there is this mindset of, until these people at the top leave those organisations, I just don't see a lot of them genuinely changing for the better. There's still practices like billable hours in place in so many firms, and it's just not conducive to positive mental health.
So the boomers are to blame again. I'm half joking, but there are actual boomers of boomer age, and then there are people of my generation, and all our mentors and former bosses were boomers. So that means we run the risk of thinking that this kind of, and I'm going to use the word fluffiness because I've just want to annoy Leanne. Trigger warning. But this means we run the risk of thinking this kind of fluffiness is just for the young folks. So Jodie really surprised me when she explained that her firm isn't full of TikTok kids who just are demanding a better workplace.
It's a bit of a mixture. So we've got probably about 50% over the age of 30 and 50% under. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, to be honest. But I'd say as well, we've got people who've come and joined us from big firms, got quite a lot of people that are older than me. So I'm 35, got a lot of people that are way into their 40s and early 50s who have worked at the big firms and come as consultants, for example. So we've got a mixture of self-employed and employed people, depending on how they want to work. And so that gives us the breadth and the depth of experience from, all across the country. And that's why we've got people in London, in Exeter and Devon, and up in Leeds and Yorkshire.
Bravo, Jodie. What an incredible woman. You really are an inspiration. I'd expect Jodie to want to keep all of this a secret, but that could not be further from the truth.
I would absolutely love others to follow what we're doing. And that's why I've been working, not just with the government, but with other organisations, helping them do what we do. So I've worked with other law firms. In fact, when some of the really big law firms go, knock, 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 please, can you tell us how you did that? That's kind of a bit of a pinch me moment, because you're thinking, well, actually, they're actually listening to me. They're seeing that it's valuable to invest in their people. Whether they affect the change, well, it remains to be seen, because it takes time. But at the moment, I'm also working with the government on changing the law. And one of the things that I really do think we need to do is update the Health and Safety Act on the basis of, we've got all of this supportive legislation on this side for physical health when it comes to secondary legislation, but there's nothing when it comes to wellbeing and mental health other than there's a duty of care. That's it. So what I've been looking at is creating a similar way to how physical health is assessed through risk assessments, which have recommendations for how you would then support your team with mental health and wellbeing. And that's something, I know the bill's being read again in November, that we're working on to try and affect that positive change. And I'm just going to draw down all my experience from the firm and the work that we've been doing to try and create a framework that will be free for everybody to use so that they can do this as well. Because it isn't as difficult as everybody's saying. I think people are just very resistant to change.
In fact, and you can properly see the natural ADHD entrepreneur coming out through here in Jodie. Jodie's developed an entirely new income stream from this. And that should be an inspiration to you too. Because if you get this right, people in your industry will actually pay you to help implement the changes in their own business.
And just continue to grow and attract people that share those values. I'm doing a lot of work in the neurodiversity space as well. And I'd like to see the firm leading more with that. What we have seen over the last 2 years is the amount of training requests that we get. I mean, it's about 50% of our business now. So that part of the business is just flying. Obviously, the legal stuff is growing at the same rate, is growing at a very steady rate. But this has just come from, obviously speaking at lots of places and people just seeing, well, actually, if we follow these steps, it's going to have the positive impact. So, lots of people go, oh, well, you're a lawyer, don't you want to wait for it to go wrong? And you can just pick up all the, because that's where lawyers make their money, isn't it? But actually, it's not, because we've got the knowledge of how we could prevent these things from happening. So let's use that knowledge and experience to educate people, to educate employers and managers and try to affect lasting change rather than this kind of reactive support that a lot of firms give.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to revisit the period in Jodie's life when she knew things weren't quite right. What are some of the signs that you're struggling as a leader or that your workplace needs to change?
Really unfortunate in that I wasn't self-aware enough. So one of the things that I would recommend everybody does is start to journal and try to be more aware of their emotions, their behaviours, and reflecting on like things that are happening in their life. And even if it's just a minute a day, that will help you to start to see patterns. And I wish I'd known this before, because I got to a point where I nearly wasn't here. So, knowing that now, I'm quite strict with my self-care, my journaling and the way that I communicate. And I still have therapy now, still have it, because I actually really enjoy therapy because I'm learning lots about myself still. But in terms of the behaviours and the signs, usually it's a change in behaviour. So if you're a really extroverted person and then you start withdrawing, for example, the other way around might be you're really introverted and you start like blurting things out, but also feeling more tired, less sociable, that type of thing. And I just found that I was getting really agitated really easily. Everything was annoying me. I was really demotivated. And I got to the point where I didn't want to leave the house. And I was never, I've always been someone that's quite outgoing and, will crack on with anything. Even if I've got flu, I don't have a sick day, I crack on, it's never a problem. But I think that actually was part of the problem, because I wasn't listening to the signs. So take the breaks when you need them. Like, we all need the breaks. And I have a rule now, I go somewhere every month now. And people are like, that's really extra. And I'm like, well, it's not really extra. That's how I stay alive. That's how I thrive. Because it might only be a weekend here or something, but getting out of my routine and making sure that I've got that time to reflect is just so important.
And to anyone who's listening who are thinking, but I love work, I'm absolutely fine, thank you very much, Jodie has a message for you.
I'm an absolute workaholic. I know that I am. I'm ADHD. I'm definitely on that spectrum of I could work every single day because I just love what I do, which sounds really sad, but it's true. And the reality is, if you're in that mindset, I could end up in burnout really quickly. And so I appreciate the personality type that I am. I'm always up and down, but I do have these times blocked out. So whether it's to go to a spa or yoga or surf, I've just got back off a surf and yoga retreat. And I know that if I've got these things booked in my diary and blocked out, then I'm going to avoid that burnout because I know that I've got that time. So that works for me. Someone else, you tell them to surf, they might be like, that's going to make me have a panic attack. So it's about finding what's right for you. And actually last year, I actually made my own journal and sell it on Amazon, because I found that all the journals I was using, I was getting like 3 or 4 weeks in and I was getting bored. So I just mixed it up so it's like a 1-pager and it's different questions, different areas to focus on. And that for me, obviously helped me. And then I've given that to my staff and then they were like, you should just sell this. So yeah, so I now sell those on Amazon, and actually that's a really great way for me to continue to share that message.
So there you have it. If you are a law firm and you know your workplace has to change, then you can contact Jodie using the links in the show notes. If you're interested in Jodie's journal, we'll link to that too. And we'll also pop on all of her social media accounts where you can go and see some amazing stuff that she's posting across the socials.
Yeah, it really is an incredible entrepreneur, business owner, leader to follow, and an awesome business to follow as well. Definitely do check it out. If there are any law professionals listening who maybe feel their mental health is being impacted by a toxic work environment, there is help available. If you are in the UK, Law Care is a free, independent and confidential helpline that provides a space to talk about anything that may be worrying you. You can call them on 0800 279 6888. The American Bar Association, to our friends over the pond, also provide a host of mental health resources, including lawyer assistance programs or LAPs. They provide confidential services and support to judges, lawyers, and law students who are facing mental health or substance abuse issues. We will leave a link in the show notes.
So I think that's the end of another Founder episode. Well, it is the end of another Founder episode, but honestly, if you're interested at all in workplace culture, even if it's not law, go check out Jodie. She is just a force to be reckoned with. She is so passionate about everything and so honest. Definitely go and subscribe to her. We would say who we got next week, but we want to keep it a secret, which actually means we haven't decided between two people whether we got insider trick. Also, another insider secret is that I don't think I remember how to edit these. So if you're watching this and there's a bit of a rough edit, it's probably because I've forgotten exactly how we edit this.
There are people watching this. What?
Well, there's 19 people on YouTube. Watch the last one. Let's hope that in 2025, we'll have a few more than just a few hundred watches on our videos. But anyway, if you are listening to this and you haven't subscribed, click subscribe. Do us a favor. And also just tell anyone who you think might be interested in us. We're on episode, 73 now, I think, are we?
I have no idea. I barely know what day it is.
And hopefully you know by now that what we're trying to do here is just bring you some amazing guests. We have got some incredible people coming up soon. But again, can't tell you about that because of trade secrets and other reasons. Anything else to add, Lee?
No, all I'd add, get in touch. You know where we are. You'll find us on the LinkedIn, the Instagram. You will find us on the Talk as well. Get in touch. If there is something that you want us to be discussing on Truth and Lies, let us know. We will pick up the topic and we will find some expert guests for you. Let us know. It's always nice to hear from listeners and know what is gonna help you on your journey to being an awesome leader that creates awesome workplaces. So let us know. This is your podcast too.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to revisit the period. Oh God, it's a bit upbeat. Sorry.